4th and goal at the 4. Give Pollard around right end, trying to score. Pollard dives. He's in there! Touchdown! Titans! The 30-point streak is broken! And the Titans fans, who dominate the remainder of Hard Rock Stadium, celebrate!
I've never been so happy with 30 points, and the Dolphins fans are booing. That is really boo-hoo.
Mike Keith and former Titans interim head coach Dave McGinnis. WGFX. Tony Pollard scores in the most hilarious part of that call and put that on the call of the year list. Eric behind the glass is that it was to make the score 31-12 with under 2 minutes to go, with under 30 seconds to go. Shout out to Brian Callahan there for going for it and probably changing a lot of fantasy fortunes. He must have known that 30-point score thing. They had not topped 30 in over 1,000 days, Nick Shook, and the Titans are winless no more, 1-3 over the hapless Miami Dolphins.
I'll tell you what, he's lucky that Arthur Smith wasn't on the other sideline. He might have a bit of an altercation in midfield if that were the case.
Right.
The cackling in that call was fantastic, but I think that also kind of paints the picture of where the Titans have been so far through 3 weeks, where they've been in games. They've had opportunities to win, and they just haven't closed the deal. You can go back to week 1 and think about that with Will Levis and his pick 6 that lost them that game. The difference tonight, though, is they lose Will Levis after he throws a pick to Emmanuel Ogbah, of all people, who makes one of the greatest catches in the history of Thunder Thighs. You know, ball falls out of his hands, right in between both those thick thighs, and he just squeezes them and hangs on to the football. It was not a good start for them. Levis goes out because of a shoulder injury. Mason Rudolph comes in. He throws for 85 yards and somehow steadies the ship enough for the Titans to basically cruise to victory over a Dolphins team that is searching for answers on the offensive side of the football right now.
Yeah, so that's the biggest story. We'll get to the Dolphins part of it in a minute, but Will Levis was hurt after an early 3rd down where he dove for the 1st down marker, the most Will Levis play of all time, just trying to make something happen. Passes up a throw to run, looks very athletic doing it, but comes up like half a yard short. Didn't seem like a great spot, but he came up just a half a yard short. So it's like he tries so hard and he comes up short, and he came up and you could read his lips saying, something about his shoulder.
Yeah, I think I hurt my shoulder. Yeah,
I hurt my shoulder. He's very expressive. His lip reading was a major feature of this game because on that Emmanuel Ogbah interception, you could see him saying, "I didn't see him at all." And it's like, yep, we know Will Levis. So he goes out with that injury. He's in pain. They get it checked out. Rudolph comes in, and he has a field goal drive. Nothing crazy. It's like a moderately long field goal, but just a couple plays where he got to his second read and made normal football plays, normal passes. And it was kind of like Brian Callahan saw that and was like, oh, I like that. Someone who's just doing what he's supposed to within the framework of the offense. I might want to see a little more of that if Will's not feeling 100%.
I also think that given the situation that they stepped into on Monday night, 0-3, desperate for a win, sees some stability at quarterback, not a high ceiling. We know what Mason Rudolph is, but just some stability there to keep the offense going. I think at that point he was just like, dude, we need to go get a win. Like, we desperately need to go get a win. Let's just ride this out for the rest of the night. We know that the Dolphins probably aren't going to score a lot of points. Let's ride this out and ride the running game, which is what they did to perfection, or near perfection. I mean, statistically, they did a fantastic job between, Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. Pollard goes 22 for 88 and a touchdown. Spears 15 for 39, not a great average, but also scores a touchdown. Bit of a boom or bust running game for them, but it did the job. And in a game where you can expect that your defense is going to play well enough to limit the opposing offense, that's really all you need, provided you don't turn the ball over. And with Rudolph in there, you can basically count on you're not going to turn the ball over. So it worked out for him. Big win, not in the fact that they won by so many points, but just a big win to get a win in the column at this point after a month.
Oh, it's huge. Callahan was thrilled after the game. He, just got the game ball from his owner. It's such a heavy thing when you're winless And now that they have won a game, the Jaguars are the only winless team in the league. By the way, with the Seahawks losing that game, there are only 2 undefeated teams in the league. That's the Vikings and the Chiefs. Let's actually listen to what Callahan said at halftime to ESPN when he was asked about the quarterback situation.
Mason Rudolph came off the bench, gave this offense a spark. Who's your starting quarterback in the second half?
We'll see. Will's got an injury he's dealing with, so we'll see how he comes out. Weren't sure how he was feeling, so we just let Mason finish the half, and we'll figure it out when we get in there.
Yeah, what will be the determining factor about who should be your starting quarterback?
It's just a matter of if he can physically play, and then if he can play, he'll go. But Mason's done a really nice job for us.
Yeah, after the game, he said something similar, whereas if Will Levis is 100%, if Will Levis is healthy, he's 100% our quarterback. He also mentioned the upcoming bye played into his thinking, so that even though it was pretty clear Will Levis could have returned to the game, maybe wanted to return to the game, I think he understood the situation, and they just didn't want to, rock the boat. And look, if Will Levis hadn't thrown that interception, he might have stayed in the game, but it's just been a rough start for Levis. I think as inconsistent as he was last year, I think he's been worse this year because it's just been more consistently bad. Like you see stretches, you see big plays. He can throw the ball down the field, but they really struggle on the short and intermediate area with Levis. And to have that brain fart right off the bat to start this game, I think Callahan was happy. And look, Rudolph didn't do great. He went 9 for 17 for 85 yards. It really wasn't a great performance. They had 4 punts early in the third quarter. But after that, they started at least getting some field goal drives going. He made a really nice play right before halftime. Maybe that played into Callahan's thinking. They actually got the ball back, shook with 22 seconds around their own 40-yard line, and he delivered a strike, his best throw of the night, to Boyd for 27-yard lines. They run up, they spike it, and Nick Folk, who's on fire this year, hits a 47-yarder. He hit 3 50-yarders in this game. Nick Folk is absolutely ageless, and that was like the offensive highlight of the night until that late Pollard touchdown.
Yeah, it was nice to see Nick Folk bang through a few of those field goals, because I still remember when he was with the Patriots and couldn't hit a 50-yarder and just kept
they wouldn't even
short.
let him try. I don't know what happens. These kickers are getting better and better as they get older. They're kicking the ball further. Like Younghoe Koo used to not be able to kick that far. Now he's piping 58-yarders. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, the Levis thing, though, like it's hard because doing QBI every week, I just watch him and I think, yeah, there it is. There's the potential. And there's the boneheaded mistake. And we saw the what the F are you doing turnover in week 2. We saw the turnovers that he made in week 1. And it's just like, man, if you could eliminate that from your game, then you could actually, take a hold of this job potentially long term. It's just not there yet. And again, in a situation like this where you desperately need to go get a win, you go with the guy with the lower ceiling who's steadier, and especially on a muggy night. Did you see, by the way, those of you who watched on YouTube saw, but those listening on podcast, it was hot in Miami on Monday night, so much that Brian Callahan sweat through most of his shirt in the first half. So with these type of conditions, you don't want to let any variables get involved. So good on them.
Yeah, you got to do the thing that tennis players do and have like a change. Change like Francis Tiafoe will change it like 20 times in one match or whatever. But just have like a second half shirt if you're Callahan, who did say that the injury was bothering Levis significantly. I mean, this was an ugly game. There's some crazy stats in this game. 61 first half plays between the two teams. 21 of those, this was according to ESPN stats and info, 21 of the 61 went for 0 or negative yards. I mean, that's freaking insane. 21 negative or 0-yard plays in a single half between the two teams. So that's why the Titans running game doesn't look as good on paper as you would expect, because their offensive line on the right side just gives up huge penetration. I mean, Spears had like a -4, a -8, where he had no chance. Like it's been happening all year. The left side of the Titans offensive line, Skoronski and Latham, something to build off, and their center, like they're getting something going there. The right side is a total disaster with Petit Frere. There was 18 penalties between these two teams. And yeah, let's get to the Dolphins of it all. Tyler Huntley somehow didn't throw an interception in this game, but he also did not throw for 100 yards despite some garbage time yards. 96 yards on 22 attempts. Missed open receivers, and more to the point, just didn't seem like he knew what was going on in the playbook that well, which makes sense. It's a very complicated playbook, and he's only been there for 6 weeks.
Yeah, and he had some inaccuracy issues, which you come to expect from a guy making his first start when he hasn't been there very long. But they also can't do the small things very well. I mean, he found Jalen Waddle open over the middle, and Waddle drops it. Even the pass to Tyreek Hill that picks up a nice gain in the second half that he might break for a touchdown, he gets cut down. They go for it on 4th down, and Tyreek goes around the end on a jet sweep, and he gets cut down short of the sticks. Like just
nice play by Quandre Diggs there. That was like one of the few real highlights. I guess their defense had plenty of highlights. I take that back.
Yeah, but like the small things are just not working for the Dolphins right now, which is why they struggle. I mean, they had 84 yards of offense going into the fourth quarter. That's not the Miami Dolphins we expected to see this season, but that's what happens when you lose your quarterback and you throw 2 different guys in there in 2 weeks.
Okay, that's true. And yet, on the other side of the ball, Mason Rudolph comes in and it was operable. They go for 244. What actually wasn't that much better, to be fair. Malik Willis, he's still in this coaching. We're in this coaching tree. I mean, they had the number 1 ground game in the NFL when Malik Willis was the coach. Was the quarterback in Green Bay. And that's sort of one of his rivals there, LaFleur. I think some of this has to go down on McDaniel. Joe Flacco comes in and plays well. Who's another one? There's been a bunch of backup quarterbacks that have come in and been good enough. Like Andy Dalton, I know that's a different type of situation, but you can say that they've lost their starting quarterback, but it shouldn't all fall apart like this when that happens.
But it falls apart when you don't have a trusted veteran option who's familiar with the offense, which is
right. So that's on them though, because Skylar Thompson has literally been there for.
But he's
Skylar
Thompson.
But he's been there for 3 years. That was their choice. So that's on McDaniel.
That's on them. Yeah.
You can put it on Greer a little bit, I guess. It's hard, but when it comes to quarterbacks, I think it's on McDaniel. But I think more is on McDaniel. This Dolphins team was on my radar of not really being what we expected coming into the season because of the offensive line. And the running game could be better. They had the 7th. This was from Austin Gale at the Ringer. They had the 7th best rushing offense in EPA in the last 10 years last year. That's how good their rushing offense was last year.
Yeah,
they are 31st now. They're 31st in the NFL now. And even when Tua was in for those 6 quarters, it was an up and down game against Jacksonville where they had to come back to win late against a team that right now has the 32nd ranked defense, according to DVOA. So that game does not look good. And the 2.5 quarters with Tua against Buffalo wasn't good either. So you can't collapse this bad. They're the worst team in the NFL. I don't even think there's a question. I mean, I guess the Jaguars could be because they're 0-4, but I would take the Jaguars right now against the Tyler Huntley Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, if you want one defining moment of where the Dolphins are offensively and how lost they are, just go back to last week when they played the Seahawks and they got a turnover inside the 10 and came away with a field goal. That's just not enough. That's not enough, but that's who they are right now.
It's tough. 4.4 yards per attempt for Huntley. Jordan Brooks, I think he's been good. Trying to think of some positives to say. Jalen Phillips, this is not a positive, got hurt again tonight. He was frustrated. He was in and out of the game. He was kind of banged up last week too. He was coming off that serious injury and got back for week 1. You do wonder if you're going to hear another offseason article at some point of Phillips saying, I rushed back too quickly off of such a serious injury, and he hasn't quite been right. Like they've gotten some good linebacker play, like Sealer's played well, but the defense has been bad too. They were 30th in efficiency coming into tonight, according to DVOA. That will improve after this performance, but their defense hasn't been good too. It's depressing. They're playing the Patriots next week, and actually those might be the 2 worst teams in the league, I would say. Dolphins, Patriots. Get excited.